Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That is right, is Your Impact Attack. And we are here, the VBC, once again in the hizzy. Who's the VBC? Hi, I'm the V, Jamie the V Williams. And my tag team partner is Brandon the B. What's going on, Brandon? Here comes the hot tag. Bam! Oh, House of Fire.
Ooh. Hands on fire, pal. Much like the Human Torch on Lion, Tigers, Bears, and Head this week. Whoop, whoop.
Whoa. Hey. Yes, can't get enough of that indie wrestling. And we have the C.
Watch that baby. Watch that baby.
We have the C with us. The chat is here. That's a triumvirate. What do we have? Who do we have? Who is filing in? Who are the lucky firsts here with us tonight?
Let's see who we got hanging with us tonight. We got Javi Uchi. Good to see you, pal. We got Liz. We got Labrat. We got Gam. We're hanging. We're chilling. It's Impact Attack, pal. Whoop, whoop.
All right. That's a fatal four-way for sure. So yes, we are live here at Hami Media Group with your Impact Attack, and this is the go home show to the go home show of Bound for Glory. And before we get to that, we usually talk about the news and the happenings and the rumors and the stuff and the things, and I guess we could do that again. I'll start out with just saying the only thing I see people talking about on social media is the fact that Samantha Irvin is no longer a part of WWE. That's all anybody seems to be talking about, I guess.
Yeah, but we knew that was coming. We knew she was leaving once her contract was up. That's not a surprise. Why is everybody going nuts over it? Like, we knew that was happening.
Well, the real answer is because everybody needs to get engagement on their own accounts by posting about it. That's why they do it. But yeah. So I mean, it happened. And Lillian Garcia, I guess, stepped in to fill that. And is this a full-time gig, or is she just doing it tonight? I don't know. That's Hey.
I think she's filling in.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. I have no comment on any of it. I couldn't tell you anything about the behind the scenes aspect of it. I couldn't tell you that I care about any of the on-screen antics. Everybody's been a downgrade since Howard Finkel, so I'm not that interested in the ring announcer position.
Remember when they had Howard Finkel and Lillian Garcia have like a brief feud?
Yes, I do. What great, amazing use of television time. But, very sadly, Howard Finkel's no longer with us, so he's not even an option now. What else do we have that's out there? Did you see anything perhaps interesting or noteworthy or newsworthy or
I don't know. I'm legit kind of drawing a little bit of a blank. There's so much going on. It's just like you think about something for maybe a few hours, like, oh, this happened. It's like, oh, on to the next thing.
When I was looking at the Wrestling Inc. articles, that they posted, it's just like so many of this stuff is just podcasts. I'm just like,
yeah, I got to give them credit. They've somehow made a business out of just taking quotes out of podcasts and writing stories out of it.
Yeah.
Hey,
you
your
listen
bag,
to one
pal.
podcast, you pull out 5 different quotes, and hey, I'm done for the day. I'm clocking out and going home. See ya.
To be fair, I can't argue with that. I mean, you're making your money in the easiest way possible, and people are eating it up. So why not?
Yeah, I just, I guess. The other thing was like even there was, of course, the Piers Morgan episode with
Yep.
right, and that is like its own. Anybody that commented on that gets their own article. Every comment from it gets its own article. So that's just what it is now. I guess if you need a constant, you really want people to constantly be refreshing your page looking for the newest things. And if you just take a quote from any piece of media that exists and make an entire article out of that one quote rather than just recapping the whole episode in one thing, then I guess that's just the way to do it. But it doesn't make it easy for, if we're just trying to report on stuff, to have to comb through that. But that's just the way things are. So that being said, my combing did not uncover any, significant news stories. Perhaps I just missed it. If anybody could think of anything, go ahead and post that in the chat. That's your role. Anything you want us to talk about? Gam Wolfer says NXT is apparently heading to the ECW arena on election night. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Bully Ray called out the dirt sheet during his podcast with Matt Cardona, Labrat says.
Well, I'm pulling up my Twitter real quick. We got a Chris Winland question I forgot about.
Yeah, I got it. I was just going to wait until we ran out of stuff to talk about, which might be now. It just might be now. We might be able to get to the question now.
Yeah, I'd say now's a good time.
Well, all right, let's get to it. Chris Winland question of the week says, can you guys speak on the suspension of disbelief when it comes to size? Who are your top underdogs? As a tiny guy, pretty sure I could take Jungle Boy, not Breaker. Please share some thoughts on the biggest people you have wrestled. Okay. So here's the thing about size, because this comes up a lot, because ever since, a certain super indie came on the scene, we've seen a lot of people, regardless of size, but maybe questionable talent or marketability, pop up and get jobs and things. So we're more faced with this sort of conundrum than ever, but it's always been a thing. People talk about size in wrestling and believability because people, in their mind, largely due to conditioning of the WWF, the Vince McMahon, Vincent Kennedy McMahon WWF, has conditioned people in their mind to equate fighting ability with muscles and height. So naturally you look at that, but that's obviously not something that Vince McMahon invented. That's something that throughout the history of time, it just seems like a David and Goliath situation. It seems very easy for people to just equate the you look at the physical stature of a person and it should be easy to guess the outcome, you would think. And perhaps, if all things being considered, you just have to flip a coin or do a 50-50 and choose what, then yeah, what's obvious to your eyes, generally that may be the safe bet if you don't know, right? What we've found in reality is that regardless of size, it's not a guarantee. There are people that are of a certain stature. Now, if you want to talk about professional wrestling,
Bruce Lee.
yeah, Bruce Lee. Well, let's talk about let's mention Bruce Lee because, even in recent years, people have called into question the idea of Bruce Lee as perhaps a myth, that his fighting ability unproven. People have, tried to speak out against that, which I'm not going to say that, you know, like I would love to believe that Bruce Lee was everything that everybody thinks he is. But let's talk about a person that we know for sure, and there are many stories and everything that back it up of somebody that is who they claim to be. The first person that I think of whenever this question comes up is Danny Hodge. You're talking about professional wrestling, right? Now, Jim Ross will talk about Danny Hodge for an entire podcast length anytime you want because that's his hero. That's what he says. That's his hero.
And
His
Danny
words.
Hodge is a legit badass.
Yes.
No matter his size, he could tie you up in a pretzel and make you scream.
Yes. And they, for NWA junior heavyweight, was his, that was his level of, that was his sort of like division, I guess. But, not a huge man and not in wrestling standards, not a huge man of stature, but with all the credentials that I could Google it real quick and look it up, but trust me. My sources trust me, bro. But because of not only because of his amateur wrestling, but his his unnatural grip strength, he could pretty much humble anybody and everybody was afraid of him. If you want to look at a more modern example, a guy like Kurt Angle, right? Like not what you would consider a small guy. I think when people are talking about small guys in wrestling, they're not they're not probably thinking of guys that are Kurt Angle size, which is are on the higher side of 5 feet and somewhere in the 200-pound range, but also again not a giant. Also again will quickly humble any giant, because of his superior technical ability. When UFC put on their first ever show, like one of the famously hilarious like bouts from the very first UFC was, I don't remember the names of the guys, but they always showed this gigantic fat guy versus a smaller guy, and somebody out there is listening and like, oh my god, I can't believe the vet is disrespecting these people, but I just don't remember. I'm sorry. I could Google it real quick, but I'm just freestyling here. Yeah, it's just immediately the fat guy's on all fours being pounded into submission by this guy. So it's like, it just goes to show you there's no guarantee of a size being a determining factor. It's all about your ability.
Here's the beautiful thing when it comes to professional wrestling and the fact that it's controlled and written. You can guide that story however you want it to go.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly where I was going. It's their job, and I keep having to say this recently. It's because people get so lost in the whatever narratives they find themselves the closest to when you're talking about online or other influencers or people in the space, podcasters that are being reported on by wrestling dirt sheet sites or whatever. Whoever you choose to align yourself with, your views or anything, whether that's us or anywhere else, I find myself having to keep reminding people that the key word in wrestling promotion is promotion. There are promoters. They are selling you a product. They're promoting the product, and their product is the athletes. And if the athletes are a certain size, it's up to you and them in tandem to make me believe. So if you're telling me, just like in a movie, if you're telling me a small person is, has superpowers, then
you have to build that character up and make them look like a complete badass who can take anybody out. So that way, when he faces the final boss, all right, we're anticipating a fight.
Right. So the key is to creating that suspension of disbelief is the promotion and the person that has to carry it off. It's much easier to carry it off when that person is legit, like a Kurt Angle, because he showed the entire world and won a gold medal. And this is the part where I pause for you to say.
Or Bruce Lee.
No, Kurt Angle's line. You know,
Kurt Angle's line.
He won a gold medal with
a broken freaking neck.
Right. So imagine if he had a strong neck.
That was actually like I think his like when he first debuted, like his vignettes was like the first real athlete in the WWE. Which is like, ooh.
The first real subtle heel shot as in the promotion of the character.
Which I'm sure kind of pissed off some people backstage. Like, oh, they don't think that we're real and we're not really tough. Okay, we'll show this guy.
Right. And there have been lots of credible real athletes that, for whatever reason, they don't have, or they were deemed to have, nor did they care to have the star quality that certain other people have. So they were content to be, you know, whether it's just enhancing or just a supporting player role, you know, all those things. Let's just say most of the top guys are not that tough. Let's put it that way. Like, in terms of like I will fight people and win a fight tough. I'm not saying you're not tough because you can't take a beating. I'm sure a lot of you top guys could take a beating, and you do.
But right, when it comes to an actual fight, are you actually going to win it? Like, you can take the beating, you know, and lose and be like, oh shit, I got my ass whooped, but I got my ass whooped and accept it. They ain't winning that fight. Big difference. Right. Like Cody Rhodes immediately comes to mind. Like, I believe he could hang and take a beating, but he ain't winning a fight if he's in there with a real badass.
I mean, yeah, and that's the perception, which is too bad because Cody's an accomplished amateur wrestling athlete. So, I mean, but I would think the analogy I would go to towards tough, but not a fighter is like Mick Foley. Like, that's the first person I think of when it comes to that. But not, you know, regardless of any of that, when it comes to like the top underdog guys, I don't know. I never really thought about like who are my favorite underdogs, but I have thought of people that we don't have that role of not just an underdog, but someone that you would think to be an underdog and be put in those situations. Underdog is the expectation that you're expected to lose. And that's not necessarily what I would want in a main eventer, but that's the role that's been sort of missing for certain guys in the top of the wrestling cards, especially if you want to talk about like a WWE.
Can I play devil's advocate there for a second?
Okay.
As a promoter and a booker, I could see the value in having a babyface champion who is established as tough, scrappy, can pull it out of his ass anytime. That's the kind of champion, like babyface champion, I want building, like when I build heels to challenge him, because this could be the night that he loses.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is always the value for that. But I think there has to be also sometimes I think sometimes people have struggled to get a good balance when doing that, because
Agreed, 100%.
There's a difference between expectation to lose and the possibility of, you know, like one guy that they have, the WWE has, right, is Sami Zayn. That's the first thing that probably most people would think of as a guy that's looked at as a top guy. And his thing is like, you know, he can't really win the big one.
Which that in itself could be a story. Like, you have Sami Zayn finally win that big one. He carries it for a bit. Okay, we have this heel we're building. How do we get him over, get him to the next level? Have him beat the babyface who nobody expected to win the big one, who won the big one, and take it from him.
Yep. I mean, there's ways to do it. But I think, the guy that I wanted, the guy that I foresaw in that sort of role as a top guy, that's not the biggest guy, but can fulfill a lot of those main event qualities as far as, somebody that you could slot in at any main event and make it like, even if you weren't going to give him a long run or anything, but to be that guy. I saw Ricochet in that spot. So because he could sell and he could do spectacular things and he could make you believe that he was beyond just being an underdog. He make you believe that he would be on an even playing field, and they never really established that, but that's my vision. They didn't realize my vision with him, perhaps.
I agree with you on all that with Ricochet. The only problem with him is once you put him on the mic, all that crumbles.
Well, his mic isn't as bad as everybody says it is, but
now, if you were give him a manager like, say, a Conan, like in Lucha Underground,
oh yeah,
all right, that's a different story.
Well, when you give somebody a manager, you're basically exposing their weakness because it's putting it right out there. You're just basically saying by having a guy there. That's why I don't like that. But I'm just saying that that's the vision I saw. I don't think that, I don't think that anybody's really going to see him in that light. Certainly Tony Khan's not going to see him in the same light either. I just, what you've seen with him is probably what you're going to continue to see. But yeah, I also think that people just have I think they have like a stale definition of underdog just because nobody does anything different or exciting with it anymore.
Right. Pretty much like every underdog wrestler is a small guy. Hey, I'm here. I'm going to fight and keep doing everything I can. Like, there's not really much different beyond that.
Do you have any guys that you've looked at over the years as like your favorite of those type of guys where you're like, oh, if only, maybe you're looking at it from like a smarter fan perspective and just saying, oh, I wish they would push him. Maybe like that. Any of those sort of guys as an underdog that you liked over the years?
Honestly, like the first name that comes to mind is Spike Dudley. Because they've actually done a couple of spots with him where it's like, hey, we're giving you title matches and we're making you look strong, but you still come up short in the end.
Yeah. Well, he was the giant killer, Spike Dudley, too. That was kind of his thing for a while.
Yeah, like the first two matches that come to mind with him was when an episode of Sunday Night Heat where he challenged Kurt Angle for the WWF title. And I think there's a spot where Molly Holly distracted the ref. He hit Kurt Angle with a with like a handicap sign, went for a cover. Kurt Angle kicks out. Then he hits the Olympic Slam 1, 2, 3. And then there was a match he had with Triple H for the title. If I remember correctly, the finish was Spike Dudley actually hit the acid drop on him. 1, 2, kick out, and then pops up, counters, pedigree, 1, 2, 3.
Sometimes Triple H would do that, which I found fun. In those cases, the guys were underdogs just in the immediate situation because they were never even sniffing the top of the card. And so when he randomly would be in a match with the Hurricane or Funaki or those type of things, then Triple H would have the type of match that the people that he grew up loving, like a Ric Flair or a Harley Race, would do in the territories where they go to the local town, make the local hero look like he's just about to win it, then take it away, escape
right out.
Yeah, escape from the skin of his teeth, make the fans say, next time this motherfucker comes to town, he's losing that belt, I swear. Our boy's going to get it for us, and all this other stuff, yada, yada, yada.
He makes the challenger look like, oh shit, they could have done it until he did this.
Right. So I like that. Those situations is where it's the most fun, but if you try to market your guy as the underdog, that's what I don't like. I don't think I don't think the every time you turn on, like, let's say an NFL game, do the announcers come in and just tell you that one of these teams is probably going to lose? No, they have to call the game like it's any, like, like it's completely equal and anything can happen on any play. Like, they can't tell you, oh yeah, these guys just suck. That's one of the things that made Charles Barkley such a fun addition, because when they started up inside the NBA, he was the only guy that would do that and be like, these guys are terrible. Like, he would say that, and the other announcers in his group would be uncomfortable because he was doing that, which was like not done. And eventually they got with it and it became a very popular show. But at first, when Charles Barkley first became an analyst, he was making people sweat live on TV by the things that he was saying. So even though they made that good TV, you generally don't see that in sports. The sports doesn't tell you, oh God, here comes the Pittsburgh Pirates again. Like, they don't act like that. But in wrestling, they'll try to promote things. I hate when they say things like Rey Mysterio is the biggest little man in WWE history. Like, don't say shit like that, dude.
Yeah, like, we've already established Rey Mysterio's like a superstar who can go beyond his size. We've established that. Like, you put Rey Mysterio in there with Big Show, we believe Rey Mysterio has got a shot.
Yes. Yeah, he's no longer an underdog. If you have a guy at the top, and I know they didn't really want to do it, but they just did it anyway, but you make him the champion, you're the overdog now. You're the champion, So, that's an example of where you should have treated him differently and stop trying to backhand compliment him with things like biggest little man. Like, don't say that. Just, it's Rey Mysterio, the living legend. You don't need to say any more than that. But Michael Cole will still call him the biggest little man every chance he gets. And that's like, I swear that's a Vince McMahon leftover vestige.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's where they should have, like, started doing away with the little man stuff and then highlighting his strengths. Like, ignore the weaknesses, highlight the strengths.
Right. Which his perceived weaknesses is strength. He could do things that you couldn't do if you were 7 foot tall with 2 left feet, but whatever. But here's another thing that I really want to get, because this is definitely like a meaty topic, Chris. Thank you for the question. I think when it comes to the suspension of disbelief, the biggest issue that I have when it comes to these things, and this is where Rey Mysterio sets himself apart from many other people. The guys now, will you see a guy like Rey Mysterio and you are like sub 6 foot and sub 200 pounds, and Rey Mysterio inspires you to think, hey, I could be a wrestler too, because if Rey could do it, I could do it. No, you cannot. Rey Mysterio is Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio is one of the greatest wrestlers to ever live of any size. You are what you are, and it's not him. So it's great if he inspires you to become great, but just using him as an excuse for why you're getting into wrestling is not good enough. And if you don't have the psychology that he has and has developed over his time in the professional wrestling business, then you are not going to achieve his level of success. And even if you did develop that, there's no guarantee that you would achieve his level of success. Here's an example of guys that you see that I don't suspend my disbelief when they're in the ring, because the things that they do are ridiculous. And one of the worst offenders, in my opinion, is Adam Cole, baby. He's hot right now because he recently came back. It's all about the boom. He came back, very recently. But when you watch an Adam Cole match, he has a match like he would have with anybody. He does not work his size. Adam Cole is like 5'6". If I'm being generous, He's like 145 pounds, if I'm being generous. And he works like he's 6'5", 275. Or he works like everybody else is 5'6", 145, no matter what height they are. He will have you take bumps. He will have you sell for these things. He does not work his size. You will not see Rey Mysterio like throwing guys around or asking them to take clothesline bumps or, things like that. He does not work like that. Adam Cole works like that. He'll work same size with anybody. Same thing with Ciampa and Gargano. They work same size with everybody. That's why I hate them. I hate guys who are small and don't act like they are small. It's like Gold. It's like Goldmember said. Yeah, she does not know he is small. Like
Ray understood his size. He understood the dynamic and knew how to work from underneath. Like one thing I've always said is, I believe that Rey Mysterio and Great Khali, if given the right amount of time with the proper booking and story behind it, those two could actually have a fantastic match.
Mm-hmm.
Let Ray control it. Let him do his thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the magic of Ray. Not the magic of Adam Cole, though. Adam Cole gets over on doing whatever he wants to everyone, and then him kicking out of stuff. That's it. That's not a good underdog. Adam Cole doesn't work underdog, not as babyface or as heel. He just doesn't do it. I know he knows better, and I know he can do it. He just doesn't want to do it. Another guy that does that a lot of times, that just imposes his will on people, Roderick Strong. He has a chip on his shoulder because I'm sure because of his size, everybody told him he was going to be this or that. So he wants to throw it in people's face, but throwing it in people's face, you do that with your success, not with your wrestling match, But here's the difference. Roderick Strong will pick guys up and he will give them like bag breakers and things like that, guys that are much larger. So here's an interesting another aspect of it. It's not so much about the lifting of guys, because I think that that's an impressive feat of strength, and we know it can be done because you see, a lot of pro bodybuilders are not tall guys. So you see them lift a lot of weight, and you could squat a lot of weight. So if you pick up a guy off the ground,
how much can you squat, pal?
You're trying more than you crippled old bastard. So when you pick up a guy off the ground, that's something you can do because picking a guy up is something that's easier to do. But when you take your limbs and knock a guy off his feet, that's much, 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 much more impossible. So that's where I have a problem with guys like Ciampa and Gargano, Adam Cole, other things, because they're having guys take bumps off their skinny limbs. And if you pick up a guy like Roderick Strong, well, that's actually possible. Like you can lift much more than you could like push over, I guess, is basically the way I'm phrasing it. So that adds the suspension of disbelief. If you want to tell me, especially if you work up to a spot in the match, like where you're like, oh my God, he did it, like that kind of a thing, then yes, that's fine. That's believable. If you just go in immediately from the start and there's no story and you just start knocking guys around and pushing them around and throwing them around and imposing your will on them.
Right. You're obviously a badass. You got this. You don't need the crowd to give you, to cheer you on. You got this. You're a superhero.
Yep. That's another thing. Like when you see a guy lead, the old, you grab a guy by the back of the head and walk him over somewhere, like to a corner or to a post or whatever. You just grab the guy by the back of the head and start walking, like it's just obviously if I don't want to go, I'm not going, but they like to do that a lot. Like, oh, just cause I've seen other guys do this, I'm just going to grab the back of his head and we're going to walk somewhere. No. That's one of the things, the first things I did, if I ever did that, cause I saw it on TV. And whenever I did that, somebody would call me out on it. The first time I did it, I just grabbed somebody by the back of the head. They were like, excuse me, vet, 2 hands, please. Like I'm supposed to grab a guy by the back of his head with both my hands and try to pull him if I want him to go somewhere, because no one's just going to walk unless it's voluntary. So little phony things like that.
Dude, that was one thing I remember being taught. Like, because I remember I was a smaller guy training, and they said, okay, if you're pulling somebody, if you're like in a tie up and you want to pull somebody into a headlock, you got to grab by the back of the head by both hands and just
right. And a lot of the guys with no fundamentals, they come in and they just do the stuff that they seen on TV. Some of them are just trained by what they saw on TV and then go into the backyard and then get signed from there. And they develop all these bad habits. And they skip the part where it's supposed to be. We've completely skipped over the part where we're simulating the struggle of the contest. Like we lock up because we see it on TV, not because you're trying to jockey for position, not because you're trying to establish a position. You're trying to get to a position. You're struggling against them, struggling back against you. We're just doing it because it's the spot. Oh, this is the spot, and I grab a headlock.
And they also didn't have a trainer with them who was like, okay, they're working with somebody, they're doing working something in the ring, practicing or whatever with somebody who's 6 inches taller than them. They're in a tie up, and they go for a headlock and with one hand, and they don't have a trainer standing by them going, dude, this guy's 6 inches taller than you. You're not doing it with one hand. Get your other hand in there and pull him with both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a big part of it. It's not so much how big you are in the ring, but it's how big you work in the ring. If you
make yourself look big.
Yeah. And make yourself look big, but be aware of the reality of the situation as well. It's there's some guys that have a presence. There's guys that have a presence that you don't even realize how small they are because they feel so powerful. They come through the TV screen and they light up, and you just don't even think like, Chris Jericho's a guy like that. Oftentimes you forget his size just by looking at him.
Ray.
Even Ray looks bigger than he really is. Yep. But so that's that. And then of course please share some thoughts on the biggest people you have wrestled. Let's see. The biggest people I have wrestled. I have wrestled there was a guy. His name was Blair, but his ring name was Anthony Bravado. This guy was he was a bodybuilder, like a legitimate bodybuilder. He was huge. Not that tall, like around 5'10", I guess. 5'10", but just super, humongously pro bodybuilder jacked. And you might, if you Google him, you might see some images. I worked that guy. He was a good guy. Since he was trained properly, didn't really have the issues that a lot of people had. He was never a problem to work with. It was fun to work with. He used to do what he called the time bomb suplex, where he would just hold you in a vertical suplex, but it would be 60 seconds and the crowd would start counting. That was the gimmick. The gimmick was that they would count 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 60. Which I guess it gets tedious or whatever, but it was supposed to be impressive. So I was a victim of the time bomb suplex before. I remember a spot in a rumble or a battle royal type thing where I had him gorilla press me and throw me to the outside on the floor. He was just an absolute pleasure to work with. I worked with Rich Young a bit. He went on to be Atlas Ortiz and then Ricky Ortiz in WWE. He was a former
get me the Congo line, pal.
He was an XFL player, the original XFL.
Wow.
He showed me his the trading card they made of him.
Was he hate me?
And he was not he hate me. I'm sure he did. Yeah. That guy was actually made it to the NFL too after that. His name was Rod.
Really? Dude, good for him then. Good for him.
He was, what was his name? Rod something. God, I'm blanking again. Again, you could Google this. He hate me, Rod something. I remember he was in Madden. I was like, oh, I'm signing that guy on my team. But there was so Rich Rich was an XFL football player, so yeah, I took a spear from him. That shit was real. Um, what else? Who else is big? Charles the Hammer Evans, humongous guy. Who else I work with? I'm trying to think of people who are Googleable. I mean, there was big people that came through and were never seen or heard from again. But
You ever work with Batista's pal?
Rod Smart, that's it. Thank you, Liz. He hate me. Wow, what a guy. Running back. Um, there was did I work with? Did you say Batista? um, I didn't, but as part of his WrestleMania match, like I met, I met him. He was really cool. Um, I don't know. Some big people. Maybe some more will come to me. What about you? Who are some tall guys or big guys and stuff that you were around or worked with?
Man, there was a dude that we I don't know if you've ever heard this name before, but the guy's name was is or was, not really sure what his status is nowadays as far as being an active worker, but his name was Jake Durden, which he took from Jake Roberts and Tyler Durden from
From
Fight
Fight
Club.
Club? Mm-hmm.
He was a big dude. One thing I'll never remember when that was a lesson, like that was like a call on the fly lesson where I'm like, fuck, I should have called that on the fly and said like, okay, we're changing the finish and doing this because the crowd, the way that where the crowd is at, we ain't getting them higher than this.
Mm.
And I didn't, and we ended up going past it, going into the finish. Still got a good reaction on the finish, but it was not higher than what we got with that particular move. We got into a spot where he hit me with like, you remember the gunslinger where it was like, okay, you have somebody like this, and then you spin him around and then basically kind of like into a rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
He hit me with that. And this is a guy like, and again, this is a guy like 6 inches taller than me. He hits me with it, and the way I bump it, the crowd just pops. And I'm thinking, like, one of my big regrets in wrestling was not saying, count the 3 here. We ain't getting higher than this.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you just don't know. And then it's like you need to do that one time so that you'll never do it again.
Exactly. Like you can't really learn the lesson if you don't experience it.
Yeah. It wasn't reinforced. Like at the time, you're just going with what you had planned, so you didn't know how it was going to work out, and your instinct tried to tell you and you didn't listen, which often happens. Sometimes we just don't trust our gut.
I remember we got to the bag. I remember I got to the bag. I took my mask off. I'm like, fuck, we should have went home after that. We should have went home after that. Not the planned finish.
Yeah. Another I was just thinking. There was another guy named Eric Cobian who was really he was such a cool guy. I loved him. I used to hang out with him sometimes, like outside of wrestling or whatever. See him at the gym all the time. Like he was there with this girl Rachel, and like they were like a package deal, like a valet, like she was the valet and stuff, and she was trained to wrestle too, but wasn't really like that interested in wrestling as a performer, but she was just getting trained for it, and stuff. And Eric was pretty big. He was about 6'5" or 6'6" and jacked. He kind of I guess he was at the whatever the Samoans wrestling school was that Batista came from originally, and guys like Snitsky, like he knew him, and would talk about him every once in a while, and had a match with him, and it was like that was a spot where I don't know if it was his idea or whatever. I think it wasn't mine. But that's a spot where it's like, okay, so I'm the small guy in this match with this guy. It's a tag team match. I'm the small guy at 6 foot, 200 ish. I was probably like 185 then. Look like you were about to say something, Brandon.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I was responding to what Gam said. Yeah, Jake Durden is 100% like he's like a tall, skinny Mick Foley. like appearance wise. Exactly. That's a great way to describe him.
Okay. So yeah, the shine my shine spot in this tag team match before they cut me off is was like I was supposed to try to clothesline this fucking guy. So the shine spot was 3 attempted clotheslines. I would like clothesline him to no effect. I would hit the ropes, clothesline again, clothesline again. I was scolded for this afterwards, even though that was the planned spot, because, you know, in wrestling, it doesn't prevent you from being a mark. You're still going to think that whoever does it is the person that came up with it. Like, you know, even when you know better, it's like, bro, just because you see me doing it on screen doesn't mean that this was my plan. Like, quit being a mark.
Easily could have been something that the agent, who's not even in the ring, said, "Hey, do this."
Yeah. So you know, but that was the thing. Like, he ain't bumping off my clothesline, right? But if that was Johnny Gargano, he would have bumped off that clothesline. You know,
as he should, because Johnny Gargano and you're the vet, pal.
That's right. So, but he was a cool guy too. I want to throw in. I wonder how he's doing these days. I haven't talked to him in years. So that's pretty much it. Yep. So thanks again for the question, Chris. Appreciate your questions. Gives us a chance to talk about things that maybe, I mean, quite frankly, no one else is going to talk about, because not only do they usually not get in depth on these type of topics, you know, certainly they wouldn't be interesting for Wrestling Inc. to report, but, I mean, it's stuff that happened to us specifically in our experience that we can talk about, that so no one else can do that but us. So, and it gives us a fun chance to reminisce about stuff. I guess that's pretty much what we got, right? We ready to move on to this lovely episode of TNA?
Get me Impact, pal.
Okay. We're gonna start off with a Joe Koff memorial graphic, and then we're going to get
classy. Good on TNA for them doing that. They didn't have to, but they did.
Ketchup packet. We have our ketchup packet.
Let me get it 1 second.
I assume. There it is.
And of course, it's Heinz, not Hunt's.
It's gotta be Heinz. I'm sorry, media.
Love you, pal. We miss you. We care about you. We wish you were here, but sorry, Heinz is better.
That's right. Heinz is better. I make the burger silky and smooth. Yeah. All right.
Oh yeah.
So,
ooh.
Stop looking at me, Swan. Stop looking at me, Rich Swan. All right. So,
although I'm pretty sure you don't know where Rich Swan looking at you where he's at right now.
No, probably.
Which, and to be fair, I'm wishing Rich Swan all the best, and hope he gets his stuff together and just gets better, and hope he fixes his issues.
Yes, we definitely want Rich Swan back. Although I did see that Casey Navarro is officially signed by TNA now. So regardless of whether Rich Swan comes back and forms First Class, or whether they become a trio, or
dude,
whatever,
that's a storyline right there. That's a storyline right there for when Rich Swan comes back. So everybody's taken care of and covered. That's what's great about wrestling and creative.
Yes. But no matter what, Casey Navarro has got his contract. So congratulations to him. And we're starting out this episode not with him, but with a pick your poison match, because PCO and Matt Cardona have chosen opponents for each other to face tonight. I guess Matt Cardona chose Rhino as the poison because he's trying to, you know, pit two friends against each other. So that's the angle there.
Again, not a bad idea from a creative and character standpoint. Like, that at least makes sense.
Yeah. And then you have to watch a Rhino and PCO match, unfortunately. So then there is that.
And at least they kept it short, and it's two veterans who know how to work.
Right. So it ends with the PCO assault. Any thoughts on this overall first match/segment?
I mean, nobody really got hurt. It was a little bit of a spectacle. Got done when needed to get done. It's two veterans who know what they're doing. Can't complain, pal.
All right, well, let's see if this veteran knows what he's doing. Dolph Ziggler. So with Gia, no music underneath, she asked him some dumb question about like if he's nervous in front of his match at Bound for Glory, and he just gives some boring answer. I don't know. I'll be honest, I wasn't really listening to what he was saying because I didn't care.
Spoiler alert for the punching up. This entire segment, sit down interview with Nick Nemeth and Gia, scrapped 100%.
Okay. Ariana Grace introduces her good friend Brinley Reese. If you haven't seen Brinley Reese, she is the knockoff version of a much better gimmick in NXT of Thea Hale from Chase U. So they have like a extremely over caffeinated blonde girl, and that is the gimmick. And then Brinley Reese is like the B tier version of that gimmick. So
if they ever decide to split up Chase U, Brinley and Thea, that's a tag team right there, pal.
Yes. The Coffee Blondes.
Dude, that's actually a good name. Coffee Blondes. Run with it, pal.
Yeah, well.
Shoot vignettes of them at Starbucks.
Okay, I'm not trying to continue to turn. I'm trying to get away from turning wrestling into a big rib. But the concierge comes out and he's like, this is how you do it. And he introduces Ash by Elegance on what sounds like a fucking walkie-talkie. Like, I don't know what the hell was wrong with his mic audio in this place, but it wouldn't be a TNA show if they didn't have terrible production issues for no reason whatsoever. So that's what we get. They have their match. The concierge does the jump up, which allows, for the distraction of, Ash hitting the rarefied air. And then they try to force a makeover on poor Brinley. And, then we get Xia Brookside come in to save her, even though it's a little bit late because they smeared lipstick all over her face before Xia could get all the way down there. But, hey, it could have gotten worse. They could have gotten to some eyeshadow next. So what are your thoughts on this?
At least it was a little bit kind of on the realistic end on how, like, they got a little bit of the makeover in before Xia steps in instead of having her ready to go as soon as it starts.
They still, got to make sure to hit her music, though, on the way out, because...
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, I'd make sure, like, hey, make sure you hit my music before I go out there to save her,
Yeah. You want to make sure you get the Xia Brookside pop, right? Like, that's... You don't want to rob the fans of being able to partake in the Road Warrior-esque eruption that she would receive from her music playing.
I get the idea from a spectacle and performance standpoint of playing the music, but if you're trying to sell this as real and in the moment, you wouldn't have that. She's just running out there trying to stop, some bad shit from happening.
Yes. Also, I'm being sarcastic. There is no pop. So you're not robbing anybody of anything. Just fucking quit acting like you're over and just get out there. Rosemary and Dark Wendy. Dark Wendy.
Dark Wendy, pal.
They're haunting Spitfire. It's Halloween season and we got to do a scary movie. So
I think those TNA Knockouts tag team times are going to Rosemary and Wendy Chu. I 100% think that's happening in Bound for Glory.
They damn better. Oh, speaking of championships, it's time for Leon Slater versus Mike Speedball Bailey for the X Division Championship. Mike Bailey is wearing pants tonight. He's wearing the championship pants. Yeah. These guys had a match.
Too long. Way too long, pal.
It's a championship match. Still too long for you?
Again, it wasn't a bad match. It's just not. It's not a TV match. A house show match, cool. Pay-per-view match, cool. TV, not so much.
But it's a championship. All right. Well, I'm done trying to convince you. All right, so he hits the ultimate weapon and the flamingo driver. Cause fuck this kid. And Leon Slater goes down. And then
I really think Mike Bailey should kind of switch to making the flamingo driver his main finisher. And then he busts out the ultimate weapon when they kick out at the flamingo driver.
Interesting.
The rare occasions when that happens.
Well, it might happen with this next opponent because we get a video that plays and letting everybody know that El Hijo del Vikingo is returning to TNA. Probably to challenge Mike Bailey at Bound for Glory. So Leon Slater had to earn his shot. And Vikingo can just walk in and...
but it's Leon Slater, Vikingo, pal. How many 5-star matches did Dave Meltzer gave in Leon Slater compared to Vikingo?
He'd need to be around longer than 5 minutes to have any 5-star matches. And he hasn't, so. But I see the upside in Leon Slater.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys where it's like that's a kind of a long-term investment.
Yeah, right. And he's also much larger than most of the guys that he's going to be trying to compete with if he wants to be featured as an X Division player. So now we're back into this conversation about believability and whatnot, right?
Right. And in a weird way, like having one larger X Division wrestler, that is an attraction.
There you go. Speaking of attractions, the Hardys. They're in a package. It's actually a package about the Hardys, the System, and ABC, which will be in a triple threat match for the Tag Team Championships. And then we see the ABC and the Hardys having a little friendly chat backstage where they're basically just putting each other over, but saying, hey, when it's time for business, all bets are off or whatever. It takes a while, though. I'm summing it up for you. It takes a while for them to say that stuff.
They did do a little spot in there where they tease taping saying tables, ladders, and then for they could say chairs. You got to come up hey, we call it full metal mayhem here.
All right. Which why would the Hardys know that? They've never been in TNA before ever.
Yeah, nor have they competed in Full Metal Mayhem matches.
No, they just don't know what things are called here.
Give me Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards, pal.
Well, we got one of them.
Yeah, and I'm sure the other one's been, canceled for shit.
So Burt Macklin comes out to the ring. He calls out Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander's like, hey, look at me. I had all this success. If these people turned on me, what do you think they're going to do to a failure like you? Is basically his point. And I was like, well, there's no coming back from that. Macklin's cooked. So I didn't listen to anything else that happened. And then it turned into like a 3-on-1 beatdown because he had the Northern Armory there with him. And,
I'll give them credit. They're trying to at least build up like Josh Alexander's new faction as a dangerous threat. Like, Sinner and Saint aren't just, fall guys like the Good Hands. They're like actually dangerous or being presented as such.
Yes. Right after having one match and losing it.
Granted, it's with, Alexander, in their corner, in their ear, but like, at least they're doing something.
Hey, you need flunkies sometimes. So, the Morellas are drawing balls from the rolling cage for the Call Your Shot gauntlet. And Frankie Kazarian, the king of TNA, he comes in and he demands that they do not screw him over this time, whatever that means. So... I mean, we'll find out what happens with him later, but for now, he's just like, hey, don't screw me over. Yeah. And then we get Myers versus Santana. Or at least we think we do. Because Santana has come equipped with chain. He has wrapped it around his fist. He will punch Brian Myers. He will punch Eddie Edwards. He will punch the JDC. He will wrap it around his arm and clothesline people. He is not to be trifled with. He wants Moose.
I guess you saw the Hell in a Cell match between Punk and Drew.
I guess he saw it. He's like, I'm going after Moose. He goes backstage. Where you at, Moose? Where you at? Be careful what you wish for, because you didn't just get Moose. You got Bat Moose. There you go. Yes. Bat Moose takes out Mike Santana, and, well, here we go.
Yeah, this needed to happen. If you're building towards Moose versus Santana and Bound for Glory, Moose has to like beat the shit out of Santana at some point to get some heat on him.
Yeah, especially because he's probably not going over it, Bound for Glory.
Yeah, I 100% believe Santana's the one going over.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a sad state of affairs. This is where we're at. I mean, they could have worse people go over Moose, and they have, but still.
At least they're trying to build a new star and further business with Santana.
Yes.
So,
and
like,
what better way to do that than to bust him in the head with a baseball bat? Go to sleep, kid.
Yeah, there's way worse people they could put in that role with way worse situations they could write coming into it.
Yep. But sadly, that's the only Moose we get. The only Moose sighting. I guess it's just not Moose season around Anthem Entertainment, so a little
Moose
bit of
season, Wabbits, duck season, Moose season, duck season.
Yep. Well, if it was duck season, then Santana should have ducked that bat shot. Matthew Raywalt sits with Jordan Grace and Masha Slamovich and the lights. We have red and purple lights to accentuate the mood here of this sit-down interview. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching this, and they're talking about Masha's talking about they're trying to explain why Masha's coming after Jordan out of nowhere. Why didn't she just, I thought we were past handing people envelopes with pictures crossed out in them. Why are we doing this? And then they talk about all this stuff. They just yapping. And as they're yapping, I'm writing like the note that I just wrote down to sort of, rather than retell all this, is there's a lot of mystique just like going out the window here. For both of these women, they have their sort of character, their aura, their presence, the things that they project when they are on the screen in front of the people, having matches, making their entrance, all these things. And this is like just two women yapping at a table. And then that's like, I could see this anywhere. I'm not that interested. So the mystique is gone.
Go to your local bingo game.
No mystique. So,
I will say, at least for me, Masha came out of this looking like the babyface.
Well, she is. I mean, she didn't do anything heelish. She didn't actually turn on Jordan. She didn't attack Jordan. She just handed her an envelope basically saying, like, hey, I want a title shot. I'm getting a title shot. She didn't turn. So why should she, But at the same time, what she's talking about, she's saying how like she feels like this is the best version of her, and that previous versions of her weren't able to beat Jordan Grace, but this one can. Well, the previous versions were undefeated to a point, and they didn't work, and now you've been jobbed out, so this version of you doesn't seem much better. In the fans' eyes, if they're following along with all this.
I think that's kind of what they're trying to get across with the kill wall, the 8x10s with the X crossed off. Like, oh, this is the OG killer Masha who has learned from her mistakes. I think that's what they're trying to get across, in my opinion.
Yeah. But to counter that point, she didn't turn away as a babyface from that. She just joined a different heel and became a Alicia Edwards, bodyguard / partner / doing all the heavy lifting. She was still a heel. She had to get turned on or whatever to become a babyface. So it's not like the whole dynamic is wrong, basically, is what it is. But what can you say other than this has got to be one of the most gross? Do you notice how the people that we feel have the most upside get handled the worst in this company? With Moose and Masha at the top of the list?
It's TNA, pal.
Frankie Kazarian's on commentary because apparently that interview that we just talked about was not pre-taped. It must have happened live, so Matthew couldn't be there at the commentary desk to do his job. He was still sitting back there processing what he had just heard with those ladies. So Kazarian comes in.
And we fixed that on the punching up.
All right. And then we get Zack Ryder versus Dolph Ziggler. This would be a main event from WWE Main Event in, as recently as, 2021 probably. But it's actually the other pick your poison match. Because I guess PCO picked Dolph Ziggler to face Matt Cardona. So these guys have a match, and PCO appears, and the security's like, Matt Cardona's personal security's like, I ain't touching that. So they part like the Red Sea. And while Zach is paying attention to that, he gets danger zoned, and then PCO carries him off to do God knows what. And then Kazarian comes in, and then Joe Hendry at some point comes in, and then he and Dolph dispose of Frankie Kazarian. But as Frankie Kazarian is going back up the ramp, he pulls something out of his pants. He reaches into the front of his pants, and everybody thinks he's going to whip his dick out, but instead he pulls out a referee shirt.
Dick, pal.
Yeah, it's a referee shirt. He's somehow the special referee for the main event at Bound for Glory. The intrigue.
Now, to be fair with the special referee gimmick, the fact that it was a cliffhanger, if this were a normal TV show that we could trust and know that they would explain and make sense of that on the next show, well, then we could accept that. But we can't really give TNA that benefit of the doubt.
We cannot. They have a track record. Well, that's it. That's your cliffhanger. Frankie Kazarian's a special referee. Tune in next week and see if he is a referee. And he'll call somebody a mark. Good night.
Right, and plus you would do something like that on the go home, not the go home to the go home.
Sigh. All right, well, hey, what can you say? Let's punch this up, and let's wrap this up. Let's wrap it up like a Thanksgiving turkey.
Wrap that shit up, B.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, we're gonna do the punching up. Yeah, pal. Let me get everything ready. All right, so we got our recap ketchup packet. Granted, it's a generic one, but I'll believe that it is Heinz, not Hunt's.
Yeah, they probably snuck Heinz in there just to be safe.
All right, and then we go to the announce table. They run down the card for tonight, give their thoughts on recent events. We cut to the parking lot. A limousine arrives. with the
Rich
announcers
people
cutting
are in limousines.
with the announcers cutting into the parking lot, and the limousine has bullhorns on the hood.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
We go to an in-ring. Joe Hendry, Nick Nemeth. Joe Hendry, music and entrance. Hendry says that he was assured that he doesn't have to concern himself with JBL, but JBL just arrived. Hendry knew this was going to happen, so he has a video already shot. He throws it to the screen. We get a music video parody of JBL. And then we go to Nick Nemeth, music and entrance. Nemeth confronts Hendry, says that he has no idea why that limo was here because JBL told him he wasn't coming tonight.
That's right. The trustworthy JBL.
This does make sense later on. Hendry and Nemeth argue with each other. The System, music and entrance. Moves promo on how Hendry and Nemeth can't get along, and the System should take them out. The System began to walk to the ring before Santino's music and entrance hits. Moose demands a tag match between himself and JDC against Hendry and Nemeth. Santino says that Nemeth is PCO's poison for Matt Cardona later, but he books Hendry versus JDC for the main event. Santana jumps the rail and attacks the System. Nemeth and Hendry join the brawl. We go to our first commercial break. We come back. We're going backstage to Santino's office where he issues a decree that if anyone from the System interferes in Hendry versus JDC, they will be fired. Match number 1. Pick Your Poison TNA Digital Media Championship and International Heavyweight Championship match. PCO defending against Rhino, 7 minutes. Rhino music and entrance. PCO music and entrance, same that we got on the show. Before we go backstage with Gia and Matt Cardona. Gia asks Matt for his thoughts on PCO choosing Nemeth as his poison. Cardona calls it an opportunity to pin the champion and lay claim to the title while building his and PCO's match for BFG, Bound for Glory. We go to the parking lot with JBL's limo. Joe Hendry approaches the limo with a camera crew. He knocks on the doors, tries to open them, but they're locked and he can't see through the windows. Second commercial break. Come back with match number 2, Ash by Elegance versus Brinley Reese. Ash by Elegance with concierge music and entrance. Ariana Grace music and entrance. Promo introducing Brinley Reese. Brinley Reese music and entrance. Condensed version of the match on the show. Followed up by the Rosemary and Wendy Chu vignette we saw on the show. And then we followed up with the Spitfire vignette with their response to Rosemary and Wendy Chu's Mind Games. We go backstage to Kevin Knight and Jonathan Gresham. Kevin Knight and Jonathan Gresham are chatting. Kushida steps in and wants to talk with Kevin Knight about their upcoming match on the Bound for Glory pre-show. Kushida asks Gresham to leave, and Gresham politely leaves while he clutches his stomach. So we're keeping that alive, but very subtly. Vignette, Crazy Steve. Cryptic promo about how he's coming back and has a target picked out.
Oh, by the way, Kevin Knight and Kushida are currently the IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions. So that is why they have not been around. However, that would add some international flavor to anything that they would do at Bound for Glory.
And that could actually be a good storyline for Gresham to try to split them apart. You got New Japan Junior Tag Team Champions, and then here's this guy with his own story and angle who's friends with both, but also has issues with both, and could split them apart.
That's right.
All right, so go to the vignette with Crazy Steve. Cryptic promo about how he's coming back and has a target picked out. And then they go backstage to Nick Nemeth's locker room. He is trying to get a hold of JBL on the phone, but keeps going to voicemail before he eventually leaves a message asking why JBL is at the show tonight. Go to our third commercial break. Match number 3, Nick Nemeth versus Matt Cardona, 7 minutes. Matt Cardona, music and entrance. Nick Nemeth, music and entrance. Nemeth over when Cardona tries to cheat and PCO interferes, with each of them brawling through the crowd after the match. We go backstage. Hardy's and ABC, same promos on the show. Pre-tape, sit down with Jordan Grace and Masha Slamovich, same as on the show. Then you go to in-ring, Steve Macklin and Northern Armory. Steve Macklin, music and entrance, same promo as on the show. Northern Armory, music and entrance. Same Josh Alexander promos on the show. And the same beatdown. You go back to the parking lot to JBL's limo. Nick Nemeth approaches the limo and tries to look inside. Nick Nemeth tells the camera crew he doesn't know if anyone's even in there because he can't really tell.
Oh my goodness!
Fourth
Such intrigue. What? I want to back up to one thing.
This will pay off. I promise you, this will pay off in the finish.
It's fine. I'm not busting your balls. I'll just forgive me if I just forgot, because my brain will not allow me to care about remembering this kind of shit. But was there some reason that Eric Young wasn't going to save Steve Macklin from the beatdown?
I think they had established it during the promo that Eric Young was recuperating from what happened on the previous show.
Okay, so they did address it. All right. I just wanted to make that clear because I didn't bring that up during the recap. So
yeah, I think I remember them they were addressing Eric Young's not here because he's recovering from what happened to him last week.
And that's his only friend, so no one else would help him. So yeah, they would all just watch him. Santino wouldn't send any help. They would just be like, yeah, kick his ass, everybody.
Right, and from storyline, after everything Macklin's done, who else would help him besides the guy who's sitting at home recuperating?
Yeah. My God. Josh Alexander reminded me that Steve Macklin was the champion once. I was like, oh God, they did do that, didn't they? I had forgotten already. Again, my brain will not allow. I just, no, Steve Macklin, a champion. No, never. But yes.
World champion, pal.
Champion of the entire world. He was my champion. He championed over me. I live in the world. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, remember the first Impact he was champion and they did like a changing of the guard ceremony?
Yes. Now. Thanks a lot. Don't worry, my brain will forget it. My brain will forget it shortly.
Now, to be fair, if you have a guy, if you're putting the main belt on a guy who has like a military service background, well then yes, a changing of the guard ceremony to like reign in this new championship reign, great idea. Just the way they executed it, yeah, we can pick that apart all day long.
Yeah, just by the way they executed it, by it being Steve Macklin. Let's pick that apart. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
All right, so they have to go to JBL's limo. He approaches it, or Nick Nemeth approaches it, tries to look inside, and he says he doesn't know if anyone is even in there. You go to our fourth commercial break. Come back to match number 3, X Division Championship. Mike Bailey defending against Leon Slater. This all lasts 7 minutes. Leon Slater, music and entrance. Mike Bailey, music and entrance. Much condensed version of the match on the show. We go backstage to Santino's office. Same pre-tape with Santino, Ariana, and Frankie Kazarian. Match number 4, Mike Santana versus Brian Myers. 5 minutes. Brian Myers, music and entrance. Mike Santana, music and entrance. Same as on the show, but no JDC to run out because he's getting ready for his main event with Joe Hendry. Ends with Santana getting laid out with Moose backstage. Let me go back to backstage in Nick Nemeth's locker room. He's again trying to call JBL. A production assistant enters the locker room and informs Nick Nemeth it's time for him to sit in on a commentary for the main event, and he sits his phone down on a table, and the camera zooms in on it. He has an incoming phone call. It is from JBL. Let me go to our 5th and final commercial break. Come back with New Japan hype video. Go to the announce table. Run down current card for Bound for Glory. Run down the card for next week. Let me move the computer real quick, guys, on the laptop. And then match number 5, our main event, JDC versus Joe Hendry. Nick Nemeth on commentary. JDC music and entrance. Joe Hendry music and entrance. Towards the finish of the match, they cut to the limo, and the back door is open. The system runs out to interfere, but Nemeth jumps in. Santana comes out to even the odds. Finish comes after a ref bump, and then someone hits the ring in a trench coat and a top hat and hits the clothesline from hell on Joe Hendry. Nemeth jumps in the ring, and he realizes it's Frankie Kazarian dressed up as JBL. Nemeth and Kazarian begin fighting to the outside of the ring. The finish of the match, JDC hits his finish on Joe Hendry, and he goes over. Frankie Kazarian lays out both Nemeth and Hendry with a chair, and he reveals he is a special ref for their match at Bound for Glory.
We should have known it was Frankie Kazarian because JBL doesn't wear a top hat. Wow. He was Papa Shango. That's probably who it should have been.
Well, I mean, like a wide brimmed hat, like we've seen JBL with the wide brimmed hat before. That's what I was talking about.
Yes, a cowboy hat, I guess you could just say. All right, well, there you go. I like that. Here's what I love. I love that the cameraman is out there with eyes on the limo, but we only get to see that the door was open. I like that nobody thought to knock on the driver's window because I'm sure the driver has to stay with the car.
That's what Hendry did. Like, not Hendry, Nemeth. He's like, "Hey, dude, what's going on?" It's like, is there even anybody in here?
Yeah, now nobody.
And the idea I was trying to get across was the entire thing with the limo was a setup by Kazarian fucking with Hendry and Nemeth. JBL was never showing up. And that was what JBL was like trying to call Hendry and let him know, be like, you're not even there. What are you talking about?
Right. Well, the intrigue is strong. We must find out what happened, how. Mostly, no matter whether you talk about the real TNA or the Fantasy Zone TNA, the question is still, how in the hell, which is what the announcers asked, how in the hell did Kazarian pull this off, getting to be the special referee? Everybody knows he's up to something. Why would they allow this?
The only thing that would make sense is if somehow, this would actually be kind of an interesting story. Somehow Scott D'Amore backdoors his way in through some legal measures, gets power back. So through Kazarian, through JBL, he's sticking it to TNA while working for him for how they treated him.
There you go. Will they do any of that? We'll just have to wait and see. Well, that is our TNA coverage wrap up. Ronnie Donnie, you asked, is that a flag behind me? Yes, it is. This is the Jolly Roger for the Whitebeard Pirates. Yes. So I guess we can take it home if we want. Brandon, we'll start with you. What do you got going on?
Guys, as always, you can catch me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these... Shit, one sec, sorry. You can catch me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X, on LG Brandon Whoop. We're back on Twitch. I actually had my first stream in a long time this past Wednesday. Wednesday nights after the AEW Dynamite Watch Along will always be a permanent place where we're doing our streams. Twitch.tv/LG Brandon Whoop Whoop. Once I finally get up off my ass and upload and update my Substack. We are on Substack at HMG Brandon. Well, of course, I'll be changing that over to LG Brandon Whoop Whoop on that. And of course, all of our great live shows and content we're doing on HMG. Tomorrow night, we got HMG After Dark. Wednesday night, the AEW Dynamite Watch Along. Of course, make sure tomorrow you check out the We Like It Raw with Jimmy Jimmy T and Big Ray Hernandez. We got the Next Level Wrestling review on Wednesday with our boy DeVette and Big Ray Hernandez. Thursday morning, of course, something happened. Something happened there. I'm not sure what it is.
Something.
Depends on who's available and what's going on.
All right.
But Thursday night we're.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. But Thursday night we'll be doing HMG After Dark. Not sure what the topic will be. Watch along with something. Friday, of course, Friday Locker Room, and it's gonna be a little bit different this week. It's gonna be a very, very late start of SmackDown, picking up a replay, doing it 1.25 times speed because they got me working until halfway. I don't leave to work till about halfway through SmackDown's over, so we gotta change it up a bit. We're gonna do something different this week. And then Saturday we'll be doing, of course, the Smack Attack with John Enright and Big Jimmy T. And then that night we'll be doing right here on the HMG YouTube a replay watch along of TNA Impact. And then Sunday night we're doing Bound for Glory. And of course, make sure that Sunday morning you check out The Wreckage with our boy DeVette, Jimmy T. They're killing it. So yeah, pal. Much love.
There's your schedule for the next 6 days. And then we'll be right back here, of course, on Monday. So last week you had not seen No Holds Barred. This week you have seen No Holds Barred.
Jockass.
What are your thoughts on this? I've gotta hear a quick review of No Holds Barred.
If it was presented and sold as like a parody of 80s sports movies, it would have been an amazing movie.
Yes, but instead,
it was basically a Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan circle jerk.
That's right. With a special appearance by none other than the Lariat himself, Stan Hansen, which, what a great cameo that was, right?
Yep.
Teeny wiener.
And as far as like the actual acting and performance goes, like Kurt Fuller carried that thing himself.
Oh yeah, Kurt Fuller's amazing. He's always has been.
He even announced recently they finally released a Brel action figure.
Really? Wow. Well, go and get one. Well, that's a great segue because not only are we talking about Stan Hansen, not only are we talking about action figures, but look what just arrived from Powertown Wrestling Company. It's the Stan Hansen action figure that I got for free because they fucked up on their pre-orders and I didn't get my Moose figure in time. So they gave me a free Stan the Lariat Hansen. The glare on the camera is not allowing you to see it. There's a little bit better. Fully articulate. I think we've got a top hat in here somewhere. Yeah, right about there. We got a bull rope up here. It comes with a rope and cowbell that you can attach to the rope. So Stan Hansen, there you go. Fully posable, different hands. You can put the vest on, put the chaps on. Very nice. And here's the Luthez figure that I wanted that was sold out. But we get the glare off of there. Yep. So there you go. Yeah, so there's that. And I noticed that I wasn't able to catch your Twitch live, but I did see you were playing True Lies for the Super NES, which was that was a fun surprise. I definitely spent a lot of hours playing that game when it came out, which is just, and most of them was just doing that first level over and over again because after that the game gets ridiculously long and difficult.
Dude, like if you make it to like the park level, you're good.
Yeah, I did. I would always get bored like right around like the Chinatown sort of area. Like, oh god, this game never ends. But if you make it far enough, you get to play like where you fly the Harrier jet. It's like the level right before the last level. Yeah.
Get to the chopper.
Right. Dana, jump, daddy will get you. Yes. True Lies, truly a great film. Just got finally after all these years got a Blu-ray and 4K release, which I
That,
was definitely eager to pick up.
that might have been Arnold Schwarzenegger's like best like actual performance.
Yeah, it's up
One
there.
of them.
I'll go Kindergarten Cop as one. Uh,
Dude, he was great in Kindergarten Cop. He played the role of like this dude, like this hardened cop, and he's thrown in this situation where he has to like tend to a bunch of kids. Like, what the fuck?
Genius. If you guys haven't seen these movies, check them
It's
out.
not a tumor.
Yeah. You mean you eat other people's lunches? Stop it. Twins. Yes, Lab Rat. Twins. That's another excellent, excellent performance from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Um, yeah, underrated.
Yeah, he actually said that like when he came, like after the whole thing went down where he got shot, he walks back into the classroom with a cane and he's like, "I'm back." And this is after Terminator 2.
Right.
Or
Right,
sorry,
he's
after Terminator, I should say.
Right. Yeah, that became a thing he would say. So, oh, good stuff. So yeah, True Lies for the Super NES. Great.
Oh, dude, like yeah, that Catherine, I forgot her name, but that actress, she killed it in that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has to she has to pretend like she's Austrian. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and she figured like right on the fly, she's like, "Oh, this is my sister," and then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh," and suddenly she starts speaking an Austrian accent. Like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, great acting.
Yeah. Underrated because it has a silly title, so you probably don't think it's as good a movie as it is. I find that that's a problem from a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s where they would have like a kind of a silly childish title, but it would be good marketing. Like, but then what the long-term effects of that is, I think when people remember those movies, they don't think they're as good as they are. Like perfect example of that is The Karate Kid. That has like a silly title and it sounds childish. The movie is excellent, obviously, but people don't remember that the movie was excellent. And then they like stuff like Cobra Kai, which is almost like a parody of The Karate Kid, but it's nothing like the original Karate Kid trilogy of movies or even the next Karate Kid. But they turn it into like some sort of a juvenile cartoon series and forgetting that these movies were legit. You know, and lots of movies that have just silly marketable titles like Kindergarten Cop, RoboCop, Ghostbusters. Like people remember them as like childish sort of things, but they're actually really, really good movies. So revisit some of these movies if you haven't watched them in a long time and see how good they are, especially after having 40 years of crap that they call movies come out. I think you'll have even a new appreciation for movies that even were old favorites of yours, you know, like maybe you just haven't seen them in a long time. So that's my advice to you. My other advice is if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Opinion Haver everywhere. Any social media platform, any platform, I'm going to be using Opinion Haver. So it's either me or somebody that's not me, but it should be very easy to tell. Brandon ran down all the shows that you could catch me on here at Hameen Media Group. You can also catch me sometimes in the chat with Wrestling with Rip Rogers Live on YouTube, which is usually every Friday at their concrete time of whenever they say. And you can check out the Stevie Richards Show, his recent episode talking about wrestling video games, including lots of fun stories about his involvement with them, including like the production aspect of it. So give that one a listen since we're talking about video games here. And yeah, check out JTG's YouTube channel. Maybe one day he'll even post some more content on it. But you know, one thing that can drive him to make more content is if he gets even more subscribers that are clamoring for content. So go do that. And I think that should just about cover it. For Brandon, I'm the vet and I don't have a sign off line.